Just a quick heads up about this episode. It was recorded before the annual South by Southwest Festival was canceled because of the ongoing coronavirus. So you'll hear Ann and Nick talk about the show as if it wasn't called off. Welcome to The Green Rush, a podcast about the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. On a weekly basis, hosts Ann Donahoe and Louis Goldberg of KCSA Strategic Communications speak with the business leaders, financial experts, cultural icons, legislators, and generally interesting people moving the cannabis industry forward. This week, Louis is out, so Ann and Nick speak with Punit Seth, co-founder and CEO of Toast, a forward-thinking cannabis brand delivering full-spectrum CBD and low-dose THC products. Toast's mission is to provide microdosed cannabis products that fit a range of users' needs so that they can enjoy cannabis socially while also remaining fully in control. Toast has made a lot of noise as a growing brand in this space, so don't sit back. Lean forward. Now on to our conversation with Punit, Ann, and Nick.
Ann, I'm back. I'm here.
Yay!
So filling in, we're recording this during the Benzinga Miami show. Louis is out in Miami, so I got to jump in again.
Yay!
So this episode's coming up. It's going to publish right, I believe, before South by Southwest, which if you haven't been following, this year they are having a major cannabis track.
It's ridiculous. So much cannabis.
It's pretty awesome. If you guys haven't checked it out, go to the South by Southwest interactive website. They're doing like 5 days of cannabis focused stuff, and there's a lot of really cool things about it. Some of my favorite journalists are going to be down there. I believe Natalie Ferdig from Politico is going to be there. Jeremy Burke from Business Insider. And then in addition to that, we have some of our clients. Shout out Forefront. They're going to be down there.
Just clicked on the frenemies one. My cursor automatically went there, and that's the one that frenemies, cannabis activists, and cannabis industry. That's the one that Chris Crane from Forefront is going to head up. So sorry I interrupted you there, but
yeah, well, anybody that's going to be in Austin at that time, like you're never going to find anybody that's going to be really more educated on the topic of cannabis activism, the whole subject than Chris. So if you can see him in person, highly recommend it. But it's just really cool to see like the way they're putting this together. You know, they have the business leaders there, they have the journalists involved, they have some activists there too. It looks like it's going to be a really exciting event.
Yeah, I mean, and they are tackling everything from social justice to the international forum. They've got something on the state of cannabis in Mexico. This is almost a fully independent show aside from South by Southwest. So it is really incredible to see them doing this. So I'm excited to see what comes out of the show.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, I think this is the first time South by is really going big on it, and kind of the feedback, we've been doing the regular circuit of shows around the cannabis industry for the last couple of years now, and kind of the feedback we get is, hey, we want to see more engaging topics and content panels and stuff like that. Well, folks, like this ticket's going to be a little bit more expensive than maybe some of those other shows, but it looks like the content is going to be top notch, and so if you have a chance to get out there, I'm highly recommending it. And we're not paid by South by Southwest for this; we've just been salivating over the agenda.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this goes a long way towards normalization. This is one of the most well-respected, festivals, conventions. I don't even know what we're calling it anymore. I think people, we even just call it South by and everyone knows what you're talking about. So I don't know. I think it just brings an incredible amount of normalization to the industry. And also want to give a shout out to Shay and the Marijuana Today podcast, because they will be there as well, and all of their favorites.
I think they have a special guest on that panel that people may want to go meet. I don't know if we can say it though.
I'm not saying it.
Yeah, so I think we're just going to leave it at that. It's just going to
Yeah.
be there's a special guest
Dun,
on that
dun,
panel.
dun.
So check it out. Check out that Marijuana Today recording.
Okay. And with that, let's chat some toast.
So we're here with Punit Seth, co-founder and CEO of Toast. Punit, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. So I want to kick it off. Well, actually, before we get into the first questions, going through your bio, saw that you're a Clemson grad. Anne here is a big-time Clemson
Trying
fan.
to contain myself. I'm trying to contain myself.
Oh, wow. That's
Yes.
great to hear. I love meeting you. Did you go to Clemson?
I didn't. My dad went to Clemson, and I have a whole chunk of my family that's from Greenville, South Carolina. So I spent a lot of time in the state, and I have pictures of maybe my first Clemson game when I was about 4 years old. So I've been going down there quite regularly and try to get to a game, if not every year, every other year. So we're big football fans.
That's really exciting to hear. Yeah, I mean, you might be more diehard than I am since 4 years old. That's.
I mean, I think, and it's funny because I thought about going there, and then it seemed I'm from New Jersey, seemed a little bit too far away from home. But yeah, I mean, some of my earliest, best memories are from Death Valley and the Clemson Tiger and, all that fun stuff. So I was at what game did I go to last year? Oh, the Texas A&M game, which was awesome. So yeah, I try to get back as often as I can. My dad's in North Carolina now, and so we always try to make a pilgrimage.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What made you, you're from Charleston, right? And we'll get into this in a second, but what, it was that, always a target school for you, or what made you select Clemson?
So I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. Not to make myself sound like a super nerd, but I went for high school. I went to the Governor's School for Science and Math, which is a in-state funded school. I didn't really give a lot of thinking in terms of where I wanted to go to college. I got a full ride to Clemson, and that was good for my family. And it was close. My parents wanted me to be nearby, so that was really it. I'm really glad I did. It's a really great alumni network. I became a football fan more after I left than when I was there.
Oh, really?
I used to get all these free student tickets, and sometimes I wouldn't go, and it seems like so dumb now.
It's worth some money too.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was a great time. It was exactly the experience I wanted in college. So I'm really fortunate to have gone there.
Well, okay, so then let's parlay this into your cannabis journey. So you go to Clemson, and what did you come out wanting to do, and did you ever think you'd be doing this?
So I never thought in a million years I'd be working in the cannabis industry. I'm someone that likes to keep kind of options open and just a sponge and really learn about different things. So I left college, I majored in computer science. I knew I didn't really want to be a computer scientist. But I knew I wanted to learn. There was more I needed to learn before I figured out what I was going to do, in my career. So I won't take you through the whole thing, but I did a quick stint in finance at Bank of America. Really, again, I wish it was much more thoughtful than this, but it wasn't. I had been in South Carolina my entire life. They wanted to move me to Dallas, Texas, and I said, sure, I'll go to Dallas and do whatever you guys want me to do. And so I learned quite a bit there, working with the finance group there. But then really, I went into management consulting at Accenture. That moved me to DC or outside of DC. That was really a great move for me because in consulting, you get general experiences. You work on multiple types of projects. You meet people from all over the country and the world. So that was an awesome experience. And from Accenture, I went to business school where I learned more about business. I went to NYU. And then post NYU, I went to work in finance and ultimately ended up here. I'm happy to go more into that story, but that was my path.
Yeah, I was gonna say at NYU is kind of where you and your co-founders all first conceived of the idea of Toast, right? So can you give us more of how you all made that connection and developed your idea and got started?
Sure. So while I was in business school, I met I met one of my key co-founders, but we didn't think about it then. So I was at NYU. I met David Moritz is one of our co-founders. I actually interned at his business. He runs a creative agency. Was doing really cool work with Patron. Makes the David Yurman Lalique collaborations with Patron. Just really cool stuff. So I worked with him over the summer, in the spring. But it actually, it wasn't until like 4 or 5 years later that Toast actually came up. After business school, I went back to consulting for a little bit at Accenture, where I met our chief operating officer, Siobhan, who's been like one of my best hires. I recruited her over a year to get her to come join us. And then I went to Bridgewater, which is a finance company, where I got really good management training. And it was, so at this point, I left, if we go backwards, I left college not knowing what I wanted to do. I took a pretty traditional path, finance, consulting, business school. Then I had done and I really enjoyed that experience. And it was at that point where I really wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And for me, it's all about people first before idea. So David and I had stayed in touch. We really wanted to build a business together. And then Chris Grave, who's the former CMO of Anheuser-Busch InBev, and he's an NYU professor or adjunct faculty. I got connected with him at NYU, and the more we started talking, it was right around the time cannabis in Colorado had legalized in 2014, and we really, as we were thinking about various entrepreneurial ventures, and we were seeing what's going on in the industry, we really thought that we had a potential competitive edge, and a team that was capable of doing something really exciting in the industry. So that's kind of where it started.
So
from there,
walk me through the pitch on getting obviously you got the connection with NYU, but how do you get somebody from Anheuser-Busch to kind of jump into your startup?
And early on, you hear about it now, but like 2014, that's like a what are you smoking kind of career move, I would imagine.
Right. So, I think it was, there's always luck involved, but I think that there were a couple things, and I'll speak for Chris, and I think he would agree with what I'm saying. So when Chris was the CMO of Anheuser-Busch InBev, he'll tell you that cannabis was on his radar, even as CMO, although they were really thinking about the craft brewing kind of phenomenon that was going on. They were working through the ABI merger. Chris was focused on bringing Stella Artois to the U.S. So he had a lot of other things going on in his in his world, but cannabis was on his radar, and he said they decided to table it at the time and look at it later. But he, as a individual, as a marketer, he ultimately left ABI. He teaches marketing. He's written a book on it. He has been on the board and started startups in CPG companies. So he's super passionate about this. He was always very interested in cannabis, and I just happened to be an NYU alum and kind of reach out to him at the right time. And I think the thing that really resonated for him was a key tenet of our brand. We all come from all these various successful careers and backgrounds, but it was really important for us to do something responsibly. We knew that in order to be a pioneer in this industry, that there was a lot of inherent responsibility in that. And we had to not only build a business, on the up and up, but there was a cultural responsibility, and there was responsibilities with, several of the founders have kids, and this is an illegal drug. So Chris really liked the low dose, microdose responsibility kind of pillar in our business. And that was enough for him. That was enough to intrigue him to say, okay, this is something I can put my name behind. It's something I've been wanting to do. I really like the team and something I want to get into.
We have, kind of talked around Toast as a company, but we haven't actually said what it is you guys do. And you just touched on it there, Punit, but tell us about Toast.
Sure. So, when we started back in 2014, we had a very simple thesis. It was, as we were looking at the industry and getting more and more excited about kind of what was going on, as many of us were, we saw a lot of focus on kind of the supply side of the business, the ancillary businesses. But our team really understood brands. And What we didn't see was a lot of focus on the consumer experience. How will this product in the next 10 to 50 years be enjoyed? What will that look like? And of course, that's like the multi-billion-dollar question. Now, from our standpoint, of course, we were biased because we have team members that come from alcohol. We believed that cannabis would recreationally would follow a template similar to alcohol, not only because of consumer behavior, but because of regulatory frameworks. And that, generally, if the government has something that's working, they're likely over time going to adopt similar laws and set up the infrastructure that way. And so we knew that cannabis would be different than alcohol. There'd be nuances, and over time we've learned that it's much more versatile and has many more uses than alcohol. But that was kind of our premise going in. And then second, we said that if there were three parts. That was one thing. The second was if we were like Anheuser-Busch InBev, or if we were Moet Hennessy or one of these other large companies, what would we do to launch a brand? And what are those fundamentals of business that you need to have in place in order to effectively launch a brand? We have a great asset of Chris on our team that can kind of actually tell us what those fundamentals are and help guide us. But that was also really important to us because we knew there was going to be a lot of noise, a lot of like booms and busts, and we knew we just needed to stick to a path of fundamentals. And so we kind of took that thesis. And then the third thing was just about responsibility, about doing this the right way, being the poster child, if you will, of not only consumers and investors, but also regulators. We wanted to be the model company, if just as people ethically, but also business as a company that's going to be around for a while. So we took that, and where we landed was that, our first product was, in our flagship product, as we call it, a slice. It's essentially a filtered pre-roll, and the thesis was that one slice is like one drink. And what I mean by that is that with all this confusion of kind of what was being sold in the dispensaries and the stories we were hearing about people going in and buying something and have negative experiences, we wanted to create a very familiar, very simple and easy to understand model that a consumer would really need to know. They wouldn't really need to know anything. If they trusted the brand, they would know that this is a product that will make them feel good, and it's a good way to enjoy cannabis. And so that's what we did. We came out with this pre-roll, and we said one slice is like one drink. Most people know what a cocktail will do to them, and how they'll feel. That if you haven't had a cocktail in like a year and you have one, it's going to be a little stronger. If you have a cocktail every night, you know that you're going to have a little bit of a tolerance, and it's going to hit you just right, and but you'll be fine. And so a similar kind of guidance to consumers. We launched a 2-to-1 CBD to THC pre-roll called Toast Original in Aspen, Colorado, in February 2017. And then from there, I could talk about how we developed, but that was kind of our initial going in approach. And
you were very focused on microdosing and low dose benefits, right? This wasn't, a strong, indica or anything like that. You were very focused on that low dose customer, right?
We were really focused on low dose because, so the answer is yes. And that's because for us, if you're developing a product that is going to be integrated into one's lifestyles, and we're moving on from legalization to normalization, then a product that is going to kind of knock you down immediately is not something that you would do that often. Maybe some. So we knew that. So we wanted to create a product that was approachable and something that people could really enjoy, just like they enjoy drinks or whatever their products might be. So that was important. The second thing, which we don't probably advertise as much, as that our toast products are sativa dominant. So we just, given the brand and more of the kind of the lifestyle that and the experience that we're pushing, it is more high energy. We initially kind of we went strong with the alcohol theme as we activated the company, or activated the brand in Aspen. We did a lot of events with local businesses. And we actually brought Aspen its first cannabis lounge, a mobile cannabis lounge, signed off by government officials, all on the up and up. And so because we wanted to show consumers that cannabis could be enjoyed, as a complement or alternative to alcohol. And so we really went with that kind of like that theme. Now, of course, over the course of time, as we started selling our products and we started seeing who was consuming it, we found out that while that's one very popular use case, consumers actually love our products for many other reasons too. And so that, the brand has grown since then.
So in addition to doing the low dose THC stuff, in the last year, it seems like Toast has really leaned in on doing the full spectrum hemp extract. Can you talk about why you guys wanted to make that move, and then just kind of talk about why you think there's all this excitement around CBD, and whether or not you think it's something that is it going to last really, or is this just going to be a fad?
Sure. No. So there were a couple things that really got us excited about CBD, and some of them are more business oriented, and others are really just the consumer driving it and the pull from consumers. So, since the launch of our brand in Aspen, a lot of our team lives in New York. We've had just a constant pull from New York about, we'd love to have Toast in New York. How can we have Toast in New York? And we kept saying, you can't have Toast in New York. It's not legal. so we kept.
That just sounds funny. No Toast in New York.
So we kept hearing that. We're like, I wish we could figure something out. And so, we kind of joked about hemp and CBD at the time, but we never really did anything about it. But our products from the beginning have been CBD dominant. The way we microdose them, we actually didn't put it on our packaging in the beginning. We just used CBD, cannabis derived CBD, to actually dose our products. Because people didn't really know what it was at the time. They just knew that when you kind of mixed it with THC, they were like, oh, when I have a toast, I feel very different. It's so different from, only THC type of high. What is that? And then we would explain it's the CBD that you're feeling. And so long story short, we kept getting asked, and we finally got asked by Chloe, which is a vegan restaurant chain, primarily in New York, but they're in Boston, LA, and London as well. And they wanted to create a CBD dispensary in the city, where they infused their baked goods with CBD. And so we said, sure, let's, we really like by Chloe, and we thought there was good brand alignment. And so we said, we'd love to do this kind of pilot with you. Excuse me. Long story short, that was super successful and eye-opening for us. And what I mean by successful is that we sold out like within hours. We had international press cover it. We had like lines around the block for By Chloe. It was like TV, radio, print. We were just amazed by what happened. And then when we talked to the consumers that were buying the product, a lot of them had already heard of the brand Toast. And were some of the people that were wanting it in New York. And then they were the others that had no idea, didn't know about us. After trying the product, were curious about the cannabis products. And so we saw this cross-pollination. We saw that CBD, a lot of people that were kind of hesitant for cannabis, were open to looking at CBD. And then, as we think of the brand's kind of roots are in CBD. It just made sense for us to go into that market. And then, of course, after releasing our oils, they kept asking us, well, the oils are great, they're delicious, they work for us, and but what we really want is the slice. So then we launched Toast Emerald, which is the 100 milligram of CBD in each pre-roll or slice. And that's been a real great hit since we launched it a few months ago.
It's really interesting the way you guys are partnering with different brands, and so like I'm going to get back into that a little bit in a little bit, but I want to talk about just where people are finding CBD. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are interested in it from like you guys being able to do that stuff with the restaurant, but what makes your CBD different than what I can find in the bodega down the street or what somebody can get at a gas station? Because there's CBD at regular old stores and their CBD at Barney's. How are consumers supposed to know what's actually of high quality?
Right. And I think this is one of the kind of ironic things that people might not realize that don't live and breathe the industry every day. Cannabis, which is federally illegal, is extremely regulated in the states that it's legal. And so when you, as a consumer, when you go into a dispensary, I think most consumers would agree with this. There's no question of the quality that you're getting at a dispensary. there's a very strong trust in that product. And of course, unfortunately, with what we've seen, what the black market can do with some of the vape things that have unfortunately happened in our country. And so really so as a CBD consumer, when you're looking at products and, how do I compare brand X to brand Y, or this product at, a gas station versus like, something that's 10x more expensive at, Nordstrom or Bergdorf. It really comes down to the brand. Unfortunately, and I know that our industry is really pushing, whether it be the FDA or other regulators, to bring guidelines in. In the absence of regulation, you will have bad actors. It's just inevitable. Mm-hmm. And of course, the addition of regulation in markets like California, Colorado, and Nevada have made it so that there's safe products available for consumers. CBD is absent of regulation. And so I think the reason that consumers really like our products is we take everything that we learned from cannabis and we apply that. We started with the plant of cannabis. We started in CBD. We apply that to hemp. And so, for example, just to make it more tangible, all of our products happen to be triple tested. So, California does end form testing where it's not the product going into manufacturing, but it's the actual final form that's tested. We do final form testing on CBD products. So that means that it's tested at the farm, it's then tested during manufacturing, and then the final actual pack of toast is sent to a lab and tested in batches.
And where are you sourcing your product?
So we by product it's slightly different, but the oils come from Durango, Colorado. And our hemp actually comes from we have multiple kind of partners, but they primarily come from the state of Oregon.
Okay. And I certainly didn't mean to interrupt you, but the way that you're testing is uniform regardless of what product, be it cannabis or hemp, and what state. Is that right? Right.
So in the States, you have to, in states, we work with co-packers. Toast doesn't actually run the cannabis facilities.
Right.
So in states, we follow, our co-packers follow the guidelines of those states because they are slightly different. But what I'm saying is for hemp, where we're much more involved in the supply chain, we actually take the strictest standards, which we take out of California. They call it Category 3 testing, where they test for microbials, heavy metals, mm-hmm. Pesticides, and it's final form testing. We take those standards. We actually use the cannabis lab, and we send them our hemp products. And we test for potency and we test for terpenes to ensure there's consistency per batch. And we put all those results actually on the product itself. All that isn't required by any law anywhere today. But it's something that we do partially to raise the bar for other brands to do it, but also because the consumer should demand it, and they will demand it over time.
And I think it just makes business sense because eventually the industry, is going to catch up and they will put these regulations into, hopefully into place on a national standard. And you guys are already kind of ahead of the curve in doing that and providing, these safeguards for your clients. So I feel like it's an investment in the future of your brand if you're doing it now.
Exactly. And it kind of goes back to that third pillar of responsibility. It's just something that we need to feel very comfortable about what we're giving to our consumers to purchase. And that's the only way we know how to do it. There was a time where, in California, for example, testing was not required. And I remember July 1st, 2018, was the date that testing first became required, and 90% of brands fell off the shelf because
I
they didn't.
remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a very there was a very strong kind of, we worked with our co-packer, and the issue was that the labs weren't even up and running. So even if you wanted to test it, you couldn't test it. And so I remember we were planning on launching the market January 1st, 2018 with our co-packer, but we decided to wait, which was a very difficult decision to make, because if you wait, you're foregoing sales. But we waited until a lab was up and running. We waited till way before July 1st that we had the testing results that would be required. Because other if you don't do that, then you're potentially selling product that's not clean. Even if it's legal, it's not clean. And so we kind of look at the same way in hemp. We know the laws are coming. We've seen the worst of what can happen in the vape crisis if you don't do it this way. So I think it's very important to us as people, but also as a brand, in order to do that. And we hope, and the reason we share this all is because we hope brands, other companies, including our competitors, follow suit.
So reminding our listeners, we're talking with Punit Seth, CEO and co-founder of Toast. So Punit, you brought it up a couple of times, the topic of brand building. You guys are running this brand. You're getting a lot of excitement around it, but there's a lot of competition out there. Just about everybody's uncle last year launched their own CBD brand, it seemed like. We're on the PR side. We're constantly getting solicited by brands that want to do a launch or other companies that are getting ready to open up new stuff. How do you guys stay above the fray in this really competitive market? How are you building those connections with consumers and building that loyalty?
It's a really good question. I think it's multifaceted for us. I think it first starts with really first building a brand. Obviously a brand is not simply nice packaging. It's not labels thrown on a product. It has to stand for something. It has to have purpose. It has to have track record and trust. So Chris always says we sell trust in a box. Excuse me. And so that's we do have track record now, so people have learned who we are. They expect a certain quality with the products that we create. We're not usually the first to come out with something, but when we do come out with something, it's usually one of the highest quality of that thing. So I think it's that. One of the things that I think that's one piece of it. So it's that trust component. But going back to the brand, one of the other things that we kind of did from the beginning, which I think might be a little different than others, is I've tried to come up with a better way to describe this, but I always use, again, Chris's words on these, but we call it the sin and soul. In our opinion, every brand, a good brand should have a little bit of sin in it and naughtiness, if you will, as well as the soul aspect of cannabis that we know. What I mean by that is, and not to speak poorly of anyone else's strategy, it's just how we think about it. A lot of cannabis and CBD products have moved away from the plant. It's all about masking the plant, acting like it's not a plant, acting like it's not cannabis, moving away from the thousands of years of culture of smoking cannabis. We did the opposite. We embrace it. We kind of take the fact that the original form of consuming cannabis is in fact smoking it, and we made it our flagship product. And on top of making it flagship, we kind of made it a little shiny and beautiful so that everyone knows that you're consuming it. And so I think that's we do that because there's a whole kind of conversation in our country and about smoking, and we're not a company that promotes heavy smoking consumption, but we do respect the fact that the majority of people still like to consume cannabis in that way, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. And so I think we embrace that part of the brand, that product line, but we also understand, and this kind of goes to our development as a company, where we started with that alcohol analogy, that cannabis is also used for wellness. And you can be a brand and you can be a consumer that you can be like a consumer that likes to, smoke cannabis or, maybe hemp, but you also like to take care of yourself. And actually, the majority of people are that way. They like to do some guilty pleasures, but they also really care about taking care of themselves. And I think we're one of the only brands that allows a consumer to do that within one kind of set of within one brand. So it's really building that trust. It's building a brand that has depth, that has an authentic story, that isn't afraid to kind of, be itself. And I think that really resonates with consumers. I could go on there.
Yeah. Well, I've got a follow up for you, because one of the main problems that cannabis companies are still facing is the difficulty when it comes to promotion across a digital landscape. Like you're limited in what you can do on Facebook and Instagram. You're limited on what you can really do online. So I imagine that's where you guys are able to connect the most easily with your customers, rather than like the folks that can actually physically go into the stores. Like, how do you generate that excitement in New York when there's not Toast products there yet?
Right. So I think that that kind of goes into kind of marketing and sales strategy. So one of the when we were just in cannabis, the way we did it was very similar to how, again, a spirits company would do it. You're building the brand for the state, eventually for the country, but you have to activate locally. And so I mentioned we brought that cannabis lounge to Aspen. Because one of the best ways to get people to understand your product is to have them trial it. And so we've done very targeted activations to hit populations of people to educate them about cannabis, but also have them experience Toast in a legal way. And so I think that we did a lot of that, in the first couple of years of our business. You couple that with good coverage in the press. And people start learning about you. But really, it's the expansion in the CBD and now being sold nationally through distributors and being on the shelf in hundreds and thousands of locations. It's really that's kind of the next step. Well, then you have to be able to be bought. If you're a regional brand, it's really hard to grab the attention of New York. But if you can be bought online and you're actually available on the shelf in New York, then you're making traction. So for us, the next step was really, that's what we've spent 18 and I'd say 19 mainly, and start at the beginning of this year, is really getting distribution and getting that national presence. And you're absolutely right. From that, we're then taking the digital marketing, which there are a lot of restrictions, but there's also a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, I have to say your Instagram is beautiful. So we'll make sure that we put a link in there, but it's you guys do a great job.
I appreciate that. But we take that in addition to, of course, some curated press that we're fortunate to get. But in addition to that kind of brings us to another key area, which is collaborations. So we just launched our chocolate with Fine and Raw. It's chocolate supplement with Fine and Raw, which is a Brooklyn-based raw vegan chocolate company. They're currently distributed in Whole Foods and various other major outlets. And so our partnership with them is that they're making a Toast and Fine and Raw chocolate supplement. And that product, we've sold out of every batch we've made. It's gotten really great demand. But the business advantage of that, besides it being just a super delicious chocolate, and that we love the founders of Fine and Raw, is that it allows they get to benefit from our consumers, and we get to benefit from their consumers. We get immediate credibility, and we get immediate access to distribution. And we have a couple other great collaborations like that in the pipeline, which are going to, further grow our brand name. And so it's multifaceted. It's being creative and doing things like this that really help get the word out about your brand. And then, of course, you always have to deliver. The product has to deliver and actually be as good as you're saying it is. And, we've been fortunate to get that right too.
I also want to talk a little bit more about form factors. I mean, you mentioned branching out and partnering with chocolate. Do you see things like vapes or any other type of edible? Do you see that form factor in your future as well? Because it does seem, you guys have sort of hit on the fact that CBD is a great entry point to cannabis and hemp products in general. And, that comes in many different forms. So for people who aren't into smoking, I personally am an edible girl. Are other form factors coming under the Toast brand in the future?
The short answer is yes. Where it makes sense for the brand and the company. So you're absolutely right. We were the question earlier on, is CBD a fad? The oils and the smokable are kind of the purest, rawest forms of CBD for people that are just looking for that. The chocolate that we just released, there's many people that are buying the chocolate because they want CBD, but there's also a lot of people that are buying the chocolate because they want a delicious vegan chocolate, and they like the fact that it has CBD in it. And that's a really important point, because as we think about the evolution, I'm going to round back to your question about the form factors. Is CBD, it's as it on its own will likely, I don't know if it's a fad, but it's something that will boom and bust. But if you can create a set of products and a brand that leverages CBD, and then maybe in the future CBN and CBG and THC and all these other things, and you're more focused on a plant-based company, then that's not a fad. And so that's why I say Toast partnering with Fine and Raw, we're not making a CBD chocolate. We're actually getting a really good chocolate and a really good CBD and putting them together and making a really good product that can be enjoyed by a lot of people. And so similarly, we'll be doing something like that in the beauty space.
Ooh, that's an exclusive for Green Rush listeners, I believe.
So we're fortunate to have a really great partner that we'll be bringing on that we've signed up exclusively. We can't really talk about it much right now, but it's someone that has really great distribution, is very well known internationally in the space, and brings a lot of credibility to beauty, and has chosen to work with us in that space. So we're excited about that. And anytime we can do something like that, we'll definitely do it.
This kind of goes back to the brand building. So since you guys have somebody from Anheuser-Busch working with you, is that a potential partnership to look into like beverages and maybe even go higher THC type products or anything like that? Are those other things that you're also exploring?
We would love to do more product innovation on the THC side, but keeping in mind that we're not generally the co-packer. We don't touch the plant, THC lends itself to be much more difficult because you do it state by state. And so our thinking has been that most of our form factor innovation will happen on the CBD side. And when we believe products are doing extremely well and would do well in THC markets, we would then bring them over. So I think, more to be seen on that. On the beverage front, we've of course had that conversation. We've talked about it at length. And I think there's some good companies out there that are doing some great work on the beverage side. But I think it remains to be seen how the consumer will react to beverages. Chris always reminds me that beverages are really hard. The last mile, distribution, it's just extremely difficult. And until we understand how will consumers react to a beverage, until we have lounges and there's like repeatable behavioral, like it becomes a behavior. It's not something that, we're looking at jumping in right away, but we think we have the perfect name for a beverage. If the consumers want a beverage, that's something we would definitely consider in the future.
Yeah, we have complicated feelings about beverages here at the Green Rush. But I want to switch to, we talked a lot about marketing and brand. Everyone in this space, be it a public company, a private company, a dedicated brand, knows that there's this huge capital crunch going on, that the U.S. and Canadian operators are experiencing. What is your current view, of the market, and how have your conversations gone with potential investors? And, are you finding them to be skittish? Are they liking you because you are a private company, or I guess I'm just leaving that question open-ended to you.
Sure. I mean, there's no way to kind of say that it's definitely been a tough year for our industry in 2019. I think it's the first of probably several busts, if you will, that'll happen. And anybody in the industry can tell you they knew the bust was coming because valuations were just skyrocketing. So it's not a surprise, but it doesn't mean that it makes it easy, even if it's coming. So I mean, I think what it lends itself to is that even though directly we weren't impacted by it, you are impacted by it, but when everyone else is impacted by it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the advantages we have is that our business model, and that excuse me, and that we're in THC and CBD. We have multiple form factors. We have multiple states. We're national. We have we aren't the actual license holders. We're able to kind of shift our risk around. So as these kind of trends are happening in the market, we're from a business standpoint, we're able to kind of ride those waves. I mean, I think back in 2014, one things we said, like as a business, was the only, not to like sound cliche, but like the only thing that's certain is that there will be lots of change and lots of uncertainty in this industry, and that regulation will be surprising. And so we need to build a business model that can withstand lots of volatility.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're experiencing. So we're, from an investment standpoint, we've been fortunate to bring on very investors that are that understand consumer packaged goods. Everyone knows that brand building is hard. It takes years, if not decades, to do well. And so everyone that is kind of part of the Toast investment family, if you will, comes in knowing that, and have not only been supportive of tough times in the industry, but have also kind of doubled down, if you will, really believing in the thesis of our company. So we're very fortunate to have that, and I think it's we're humbled by it as well, because it has been a tough year, and there's been companies that have been disproportionately hurt by just bad luck in certain situations. So, but what we do see in 2020 is that it seems, I'm not someone that's gonna predict anything in this industry, but it does seem like we seem to be coming out of the sentiment seems to be turning positive, and we hope that the lessons have been learned in the public markets, and we'll start seeing some more business based on fundamentals. And that we're coming out of this kind of rut that 2018 was.
Yeah, I think we've all, had conversations certainly on this podcast that, investors especially are kind of looking for, operational, excellence and understanding, the companies are going to do what they say they're going to do. And they kind of, I think before 2019, it was a lot of promises and not delivering on those promises. So I think the companies who are, sticking to their plans and, executing on their strategies are the ones who are going to ultimately win in the end. You have been so generous with your time, and we have two more questions for you. So if you will bear with us, we ask these two questions of all of our guests. Can you talk about a time in your life that you have failed, what it was and what you learned from it? You've had such an entrepreneurial journey, with the background in finance, but kind of taking this leap. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as a time that you really screwed something up and learned something amazing from it?
Yes, I've definitely screwed up a lot of things in my life. It's just a question of which would be the best example.
You can do more than one if you want, but.
Right. So for anyone that knows, so I worked at Bridgewater, which is a hedge fund, and for anyone, Ray Dalio is the famous kind of founder of that company. He's come out with a book called The Principles, and anyone that knows about Bridgewater will know that is a company where you work, you focus on your weaknesses. So all you do all day is talk about things that you're not good at and how you can improve.
That sounds terrible.
So I screwed up a lot there. I think, I think one of the, I'm just trying to think of a good example. I think I definitely, excuse me, when I was at Bridgewater, I was responsible for doing a lot of the there were a lot of things in operations and kind of the running of certain departments. And I definitely I won't get into the details, but I definitely royally screwed up some things that got some of the most senior people in the company pretty upset with me. And I think luckily it's a great place to make mistakes. And I think it's kind of like these lessons are always very obvious. So like I'm not going to have a profound advice for anyone, but I think the thing I learned, and it's been helpful for me in Toast, is you don't always have to have the right answer as a person. Like, if you're the CEO of a company, you don't have to be the expert of everything that your company does, but the most important thing is that it is your responsibility as a leader to always bring in the smartest and best talent you can to solve a problem, even if you know nothing about it. And so in the thing I screwed up, I acted like a know-it-all and I completely messed everything up, didn't ask for help. And so that was a big lesson. And so kind of how I would tie it back to Toast is that, we had a really great idea with Toast. We had a really great team. My other co-founders are also, experts in brand building. But I didn't feel comfortable jumping in both feet in until I had Chris on my team. And I'll say that because I was like, we're building a brand in a brand new space. I need someone of like real stature to say that this is a good idea. And I think when Chris joined our team, having launched Stella and being really responsible for Coke Zero in a lot of ways, just having his guidance and his knowledge was really helpful. And so I've become much more humble since that experience, and knowing that, and I think we've been really fortunate at Toast to being able to bring in really smart people at various things. So that's what I would.
Yeah, I think the old adage is trying to, when you're a boss, trying to bring in people that are smarter than you so they can keep making everything better. But so our last question for you, Punit, what's the big story, or what do you think the story that either the media should be covering? What are we missing about the cannabis industry that you would love to see on the front page of the Denver Post or the New York Times?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. I think one would be that our industry just went through this downturn. Hopefully we're on an upswing, but we predictably will hit future downturns. It's just inevitable. And it always comes down to like fundamentals, and are investors and markets focused on fundamentals, or are they kind of getting caught up in whatever the hype of the moment is? So I think like we have an industry that has great demand. It's following the tenets of consumer packaged goods. It's following kind of alcohol regulation. We already know what the issues are going to be. So I think more coverage on fundamentals and like maybe highlighting businesses that are doing things the right way would be great, because I think there's just a lot of noise out there, and information on that would be really helpful. The other thing
that would make our job easier.
The other thing I would just mention, and I do see a lot of this in our industry, because I know our industry really cares about this, but I don't necessarily see it in the press. There's a whole cultural component. There's like positive and negative cultural components when it comes to our industry. There's just a lot of history there. There's books been written on it, and I think as we build for this industry, and we build for like the consumer of now and the future, there's also the consumer of the past, and there's the culture of how this, how cannabis and hemp and various products have been enjoyed, which we shouldn't forget, and we should make part of our industry. And there's also a lot of bad things that have happened, like with social justice issues, incarceration. And again, I hear about this all the time in our industry, and I see it at events, but I don't see the press covering it. And I don't see the press covering kind of people that have been unfairly hurt by the issues of the past, and that might not be getting the fair opportunity they should be in today's industry. So I think more coverage on that would be really helpful, and because I think a lot of people don't even know, they don't know that past, and so it's important for people to know that.
Punit, thank you so much. This has been really great, and you've been so generous with your time. We, have the Toast Wellness website that we can put in our show notes. But is there anywhere else that you'd like people to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Toast Wellness is a good place. We also have, you mentioned the Instagram.
Oh, yes. We Toast on Instagram. It's delightful.
Right. So yeah, we'd love to continue the conversation on either of those forums with people.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Punit Seth, co-founder and CEO of Toast. Check them out online at toastwellness.com and on their very excellent Instagram page at WeToast. As always, thanks for listening. If you want to chat with us, find us at Twitter at @the_greenrush or on Instagram at @thegreenrush_podcast or send us an email at greenrush@kcsa.com. I swear I'm getting through this. We love your feedback. We want guest ideas. Lewis wants hate mail. It's fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe to The Green Rush in your favorite podcatcher. That's like take 27, Shay. Take 27.